Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started shortly in exactly 3 minutes. We'll be starting at 7:05. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Young Professional program. A few housekeeping rules. This meeting is being recorded and all participants are being placed on mute upon entry. Please utilize our chat function to introduce yourself. That will be your name, title, if applicable, how long you've been with NAHSE as a member, and you'll be able to also ask questions using the chat function. And for those of us new to NAHSE, NAHSE is the National Association of Health Service Executives with a mission to promote the advancement and development of minority healthcare leaders and to elevate the quality of healthcare services rendered to minority and underserved communities. NAHSE's vision is to be recognized globally as a premier professional membership society for Black in healthcare management. NAHSE has been empowering the next generation of healthcare leaders for over 50 years. NAHSE is committed to the association's goal by providing professional programs and workshops, educational programs like what we are having tonight, a job bank, mentorship programs, scholarships, fellowship opportunities, community service projects, health policy, and be able to expand business contract opportunities. And to our next slide, we will be introducing our panelists shortly. But before that, I want to introduce our moderator for tonight. That will be Aaron Hopkins. He is an ambulatory multi-specialty operation and strategic planning administrator at Mansaray Health System. Before transitioning to his current role, he completed an administrative fellowship with Mount Sinai Hospital in 2018, where he rotated between various Hospital and Health System departments. He received a master's in health service administration from the University of Michigan and a bachelor's degree in biology from Morehouse College. Additionally, Aaron is our membership chair at NAHSE New York Regional Chapter, and he is also a committed member of our organization at large. So I'll pass it over to Aaron, and he will introduce the panelists and get us started for tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and Victoria, thank you for that amazing introduction. I will begin this panel session by introducing the panelists here, and I will start with Alpha Mansaray. Alpha began his fellowship at Mount Sinai West in July of 2019 after completing his master's in healthcare administration at The Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. He completed his undergraduate degree at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, VA. Alpha is currently a second year in his fellowship at Mount Sinai and has worked on the COVID vaccine rollout, financial budgets, discharge volume analysis, patient experience, strategy, and served as an interim practice manager. Post-fellowship, Alpha would like to transition into a population health role at Mount Sinai Health Partners. Welcome, Alpha, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
The next panelist I would like to introduce is Naya Holder. Naya Holder is a speaker, healthcare consultant, life coach, and entrepreneur. Naya earned a joint degree from Yale, a bachelor's degree in psychology, and an MPH in healthcare management. While as a student, she won several grants to launch ventures through which she taught mindfulness to young women in high school and developed business planning documents for local entrepreneurs. She has worked as a business analyst developing quarterly reports for the nation's largest public hospital system and as a consultant conducting clinical redesign efforts for health systems around the country and supporting NYC with their COVID testing strategy. Pleasure to have you here with us this evening, Naya.
Thanks for having me.
Last but not least, I would like to introduce our panelist, Ralph Thomas. Ralph Thomas is an emergency medicine administrator for Long Island Jewish Value Stream at Northwell Health. In this role, he is responsible for operations, performance, and implementing strategic initiatives focused on process improvement within their emergency departments. Prior to this role, Ralph was a senior program manager for clinical transformation. Ralph has over 10 years of experience, which includes hospital operations, population health, project management, and nonprofit leadership. Ralph is the recipient of the NAHSE NYC Chapter 2019 Young Executive of the Year Award. Ralph is a graduate of Stony Brook University, and he earned his Master in Healthcare Administration from Hofstra University. Ralph, thanks for finding the time to speak with us this evening.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you, thank you. Welcome, NAHSE family. It's the first time. Welcome to here.
So I wanted to kick off the panel here by starting with individual questions for each of our panelists. And I'll start the first question here with Alpha. So Alpha, why did you choose to pursue an administrative fellowship over taking an entry-level position once you had graduated from the University of Ohio or Ohio State University?
So I decided to pursue an administrative fellowship for 3 reasons. I think one, even though I was very, passionate and I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but there was still so much in healthcare that I had not been exposed to, right? So an administrative fellowship would have allowed me to gain broad exposure to a variety of hospital areas and outpatient areas. So I decided to apply for that reason. And the second reason too is I wanted to work with executive leaders. I think when you're in grad school, you're working with peers, and that has its own challenges, and you learn from that. But also, you can learn a lot by working with people who have 20 years of experience over you, who have seen it all. So that was the second reason. And the third reason, administrative fellowships really provide a fast track to higher level roles. When I was in grad school, we had alumni who came in who did an administrative fellowship, and immediately they became an administrator. For example, Aaron, you're one of those people who you finished your fellowship at Mount Sinai and you got an administrator role. So, I wanted to really put myself in a position to succeed. And I thought an administrative fellowship would allow me to do that.
Yes, Alpha, thank you for that answer. And as an alumni of the fellowship program as well, I know that everyone at Sinai has been very pleased with your progress. My next question will be for Naya. So Naya, what led you to your decision to chart your own path and to really start your own company at this point in time in your career?
Yeah, great question. I'd say that I'm all about efficiency. I looked up the ladder at my job. So I spent a couple of years working for the city's public hospital system and then as a healthcare consultant for a consulting firm. And I looked up the ladder at my organization and asked myself, are these people living interesting lives? Are they solving problems that excite me? Are they spending time with their families? Are they working out? You know, are they living the dream? Because I realized as I was preparing myself to position myself for a promotion, I had to really ask myself, is this what I really want? Do I want to be climbing this ladder and ultimately working my way up to live the life that, you know, people further up were? And the answer to that question was no. And I knew that what I always wanted to do was to coach, to work with people who are either moving through career transitions or really itching to build a business of their own, which I did on the side. But I came from a family where everyone was in healthcare, nurses, people working in rehab centers. So I felt pulled to work in healthcare because it was what I knew. But what I always enjoyed, I kind of left for side hustles. So as I became more disillusioned with building a career as a healthcare consultant, I realized that, you know, I could go back to school and get another master's degree because I love school. But the truth was is that I really wanted to start to build experience in what I did enjoy. And I could either jump off the bandwagon now and like build the pipeline and the business now, or wait a few years more when I'm more burnt out and, you know, kind of still figuring it out and jump off then. So it came down to a time efficiency question. And that's ultimately what led me to building my business now.
Thank you for that, Naomi. No, it's really inspiring, all the work that you're doing and all how it's very multifaceted in the different layers within healthcare. So thank you. The last individual question that we have is for Ralph Thomas. Ralph, you were the most senior member on the panel, but still considered pretty early in your career. What is some advice you would give to those graduating from a master's program or just starting out in their first position?
You know, I think that when I got this question, made me think of kind of like my journey and how I got here. And I think, you know, within your master's program or undergraduate, the best thing you can do is truly try to get an internship, shadow someone for a day or a month, as much as possible to try to figure out. Healthcare in 2021 is a grand spectrum. You can try to figure out which area you want to go into. If you're a people person, if you're behind the scenes person, research, numbers, finance. So, you know, once you can figure out that path for you, and the only way to figure that out is really to learn from those ahead of you of like what their work life is balance is like. Reach out to individuals, you know, your professors, if you're still in school, if it's your first, you know, career opportunity, reach out to your manager and maybe other managers throughout the building just to really see how it flows. And if you're in a, you know, in a hospital setting or for ambulatory, or, you know, I kind of went from public health to epidemiology to community health to project management, program management, and operations, you know, all within healthcare, all which has allowed me to gain successes and journeys throughout this life. So I think it makes me well-rounded, but that's my unique journey and everyone is different. So I definitely would suggest reaching out to individuals as much as possible, kind of hear their journey and see. And although it changes, as we know, the pandemic, you know, it's just gonna make sure that the opportunities are opening up even more.
No, I agree completely. I think that, you know, really getting that hands-on experience and what you know someone thinks that they want to do is really that first and next to best step to really understanding if it is the right fit for them. So moving along, and now the rest of the questions, you know, will be for all of the panelists. But Naya, can we actually have you start answering this question? And, you know, what does taking charge of your career as an early careerist mean to you? And what are some strategies you have implemented so far to be successful?
Yeah, so when I think about taking charge of your career, I really think about knowing what you want and why. It's really easy to fall into the trap of what's the next thing that will look good on paper, and then what will be the next thing after that. Yes, it's important to position yourself for challenge, but ultimately you'll be living the reality of the job that you select for yourself. So is it the content that you're interested in? Are you working with people who inspire you and motivate you? Are you working on a team that's supportive of your growth and your professional goals? right? And so often when we're navigating like the interview process, we spend a lot of time preparing for the questions that they might ask us, but it's really also an opportunity for us to interview the people that we'll be working with, and getting a sense of culture, of the sort of work that you'll be doing, the sort of the sort of team that you'll be finding yourself in. So I think taking charge of your career is really creating a playbook for how you're living your life and why. So developing that criteria begins with just building self-awareness. I don't think I would have jumped into coaching as soon as I did. We'll talk a little bit later about like how COVID sped that up for me. But the process really began with building self-awareness. I became more aware of the parts of my job that I really loved and the parts of my job that I really disliked. And it turned out that I was doing a lot of the work that wasn't necessarily on my job description. And it had to do a lot more with coaching, being with people, building community at my job. So it made it even clearer that this was the direction that I needed to be heading in and investing in. So I'd say start by building awareness and get honest with yourself about what's working and what's not. It's easy to brag about working long hours, you know, and being on the next exciting project, but how is work fitting into your life as a whole?
I would say, as someone who, just is in the second year of their fellowships, so during my first year, I read this book that really changed my perspective on how I approach work, right? It was called the NAHSE Principle. And it basically, the essence of the book was redefining accountability from being subjective to empowering, right? And it had 4 steps. It was see it, own it, solve it, and do it. And this so essentially what the book said, in any situation you're in, say you're working with a group of people, right? And something needs to be done. Instead of, waiting for someone else to do it, or like looking at the gray area and using that as an excuse not to do something, it's recognizing like, okay, here is where I can own something. Here's where I can do it. Here's where I can really take charge and change the trajectory of this project. So every time I'm in a group or every time I'm working with senior leaders, as soon as I see something, right, that needs to be done or something that no one is stepping up, I am not going to, I no longer say, oh, whose job is it, right? I'm like, okay, this is time for me. I've seen it, right? So the next step is to own it, right? Next step is to solve it and just do it. So I think sometimes as early careers, you get into these rooms and you feel like, you don't belong, or you feel like you have imposter syndrome. But if you see something, right, that no one else is taking on, but it will make the project better, do it. It will change your life. I mean, the amount of praises I've gotten and the amount of work I've gotten ever since I adopted this philosophy has been tremendous, right? So I recommend that book for anyone who's looking to just, take charge and take control of their own destiny at work.
I think taking charge as an early careerist is understanding that you have your book smarts and also practical smarts. And I think with the book smarts, you're learning the history and what goes on in the structural change of healthcare, but also the hard skills, which you can do on your own. You truly have to be independent on the strategies that you want to gain in terms of whether it's suggesting data visualization or just AI, which is very hot right now. And most of these hot things, they come right back around again. So just understanding what's popular within the industry and then trying to figure out as much as possible, but also surrounding yourself with, whether it's other classmates, other friends, individuals who are in the industry looking to, gain knowledge and develop their career also. That will help you, really make that change and moving forward.
Yes, thank you all for those answers. I just wanted to interject here as a reminder for those in the audience. If you all have any questions that you all would like to hear the panelists answer, feel free to type those in the chat, as we will be having a small Q&A session in a little while. The next question, of course, is for all the panelists, but Alpha, can you please feel free to answer this first? What do you think are some valuable skills that early careers should have or try to develop at this stage in their career?
So I would say for me, right, I think an analytical mindset is key, right? And it's just in healthcare, there's so much happening. There's so much information. There's so many different directions you can go with things, right? And there's not a right answer to anything, right? But I would say one thing that definitely makes finding a solution that works easier is being analytical, thinking critically, right? Every step of the way, right? So this is every time you get something, right? Just don't take it for face value, right? Think through it, say, okay, what happens if I do this, right? Or if you get a task or you get a project. Usually when people give it to you, they have not spent, a lot of time thinking through it. It is for you to take, right, and sit with and say like, okay, my boss gave me this, right? What is currently going on at work or what is currently happening? How can I take this to the next level? And I think it's just moving past that doing and really taking it to the next level of being analytical of like, trying to like actively figure out like how can I contribute meaningfully to whatever task I've been given instead of just do it. Right. And another thing I would say, it's practice taking your time. So I know for me, all throughout school, I like to be done first, right? I pride myself on being able to do things quickly, right? And that's great. But sometimes in the real world, if there's no deadline, taking your time with it, taking your time to really make sure you understood the assignment and then being efficient is more important than just doing it, right? And I cannot stress this enough. And I had to learn this the hard way because I used to be given things and immediately I would do it and be like, done, right? And then as time went on, I missed all of these things. And it's because, A, I wasn't thinking critically and I didn't really take the time to fully sit with it. And that, and for most things, it takes time, right? Like you are not going to be able to solve any problem in your organization in a day. I mean, you can't solve things by just Googling it and finding best practices, right? You have to take those best practices, apply it to your organization, and that takes time.
Yeah, I'll jump in. And I love what Alpha is saying about thinking analytically. And I think a big part of that is really understanding what the big picture is, right? So you get an assignment, you're working on a team, you're working for a potential client. What is it that the client is really asking you for? Sometimes you may not be aware of what that answer is, and you may need to talk to someone else on your team. But getting clear of the big why will help you not only excel in the assignment or task that you've been given, but also think ahead to what will likely be like the next step here. What may be like the next opportunity for business development with this client. So it's important to, yes, really become focused and granular on what the details of the specific project or task you're being assigned, but also have that bigger view in mind. The other thing that I'd share is just practicing keeping track of your wins, because when it comes time for promotion, you can't expect your manager to know all the things that you've done. You're the best advocate for yourself. So when you have time to sit with your manager and maybe plan out, what skills you're hoping to develop, also keep track of your wins towards that development because it'll serve you later on when those conversations come.
I think that, those are great, valuable tips, as they said, selling yourself and keeping track of your wins. For me, I would say, I think as an early careerist, there's a few that data analytics. Number one, I think that's definitely still a great thing to have and understand. Excel as much as possible, just have basic knowledge, I'm not saying do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, but just understanding what it looks like and leading a meeting. I think people forget that. You're going to have a lot of people in a room or, on Zoom, and then you're just going to have to control the room. I think that, in any environment, it's just going to be something you're going to have to do. And I think that a lot of people try to skip that step. And then when they're thrown into the environment where they have to, they're unable to. So I think leading a meeting will be definitely, and it takes practice with, multiple people in an environment, but you could try it with friends and family, just having come together and try to, lead something and see what happens.
All really great answers. And Ralph, just kind of continuing from that point, how has the COVID-19 pandemic actually affected your career view as well as your career path currently?
COVID-19, it's we're like what, 11 months, and it's been a whirlwind. And I think that for me, doing process improvement work, and understanding the changes within my organization and understanding the different facilities and how they operate, we were actually, for myself, transitioned and redeployed to facilitating telehealth, which I had a small knowledge of, but we really deep dive into it and taking, from 400 providers to 7,000 providers within 4 weeks. And that's a real big undertaking, but knowing that, this is the part that we have to do in order to make the changes within the environment of a healthcare space, really taught us and taught me that, this is the opportunity that, and how what was supposed to be 5-10 years ago is being sped up in in a month. And it just shows, I'm kind of happy, it brought healthcare up to the speed that we were, for me, sitting in class, just reading about this stuff and it's finally happening. It's like, okay, now it's like, okay, what's going to happen within the next 5 years? And that's what we really have to think about. And that's what makes me think about the trajectory of my career right now, because I know a lot's going to happen within, there's still going to be the solidified hospitals, but the delivery of healthcare is going to change. And we're going to be a part of that change, and how we navigate it, even within the New York space. New York is still traditional and like to do things the old way. That's going to change dramatically soon. And the ability to COVID-19, you see healthcare CEOs sitting together in a room. It's like something you never unheard of, before COVID. So for me, it's just looking still within operations and strategy, and looking how I can use that space into developing myself into different service lines and areas.
It's funny you make that point, Ralph. I had a similar, I guess, experience when I actually started my role last year. It was January. I remember I had to ask my boss, like, hey, we don't really have a solidified telemedicine program for, our ambulatory sites. And her response was, oh, we're too busy now. We'll probably roll it out in like 2022. And then the pandemic hit. And then 3 months later, every ambulatory site had a telemedicine program built out. So again, I definitely resonate that with you. Alpha and Naya, did you all have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say for me, definitely, what the pandemic has taught me is the importance of like work-life balance. Before the pandemic, I thought I I wanted any role, right? As long as, it's like high level, it will like, put me in a very visible spot in an organization. I wanted it, right? But because due to COVID, it was all hands on deck, right? So I was getting these roles that I thought I would love, right? And one of them is being a practice manager. And after being in that role, and because during COVID, there were a lot of call outs, right? So it's like every day I would go in, and my first 3 hours was basically putting out fires. You know what I mean? It's like before I even got to my work, I was like, who called out? I needed to find staffing, right? Or the providers needed this, and that. I couldn't even get to my job, right? At first, because I just had to put out fires. And then by the time I got to my job, I will be at work until like 8 or 9. And I was like, okay, now, right? So I started to think to myself, I'm like, yes, I'm getting praise. Yes, I'm doing well, right? Yes, I can do this. But do I really want to, right? And that was a game changer for me, right? Especially as I was looking for roles. I was like, it's not that you can't do it, is do you want to? Are you going to be happy doing it, right? So when I was applying for jobs, one of the questions I asked was, okay, you know what? If I am going to be leading this, I know if anything happens, it's going to be on me and I have to solve it, right? So what are your expectations around that, right? Like what are the hours? Just being very careful about like what I take on next and how feasible it was that I was going to live the life I wanted. Like Naya said before, right? Go to the gym, right? So for me, I think COVID just made me realize, yes, I can do a lot of things, but I also need to ask myself, do I want to do it? And am I going to be happy? And I'm so happy to know, my next role is going to be in corporate and I'm going to be able to work from home some of the time. And I think for me, that's a better balance, right? And I'm happy to do it and I'm going to be more successful in the long run and I'm not going to burn out.
Yeah, one of the hidden gems of COVID is it taught us to not only think about what we want to work on, but how we want to work. So I totally resonate with that, Alpha. I'm not ditching the work from home thing. I love it too much. So a couple of things happened for me last year. So at the beginning of COVID, all of the projects that I was working on as a consultant came to a halt. So we were supporting Virginia as they were designing their Medicaid program. We were also helping North Carolina as they were doing something similar to build in social determinants of health into their Medicaid system. And obviously when COVID hit, all of our clients were freaking out because they didn't know what to do, what was going to happen with the healthcare system. And so we automatically shifted into this, this knowledge sharing sort of consulting firm. So I was tasked with helping so again, working for New York City's public hospital system, and helping them decode all the federal regulations that were coming down around, what were the policies that were changing in hospitals. So now hospitals are able to set up temporary sites and redirect COVID patients to specific sites. What's going on with telehealth? Like lots of rules have changed and flexibilities have been allowed. So my entire portfolio of work completely changed. So I resonate with both Ralph and Alpha of just sharing just like how the landscape around healthcare just changed and everyone had to become experts overnight, for the sake of our clients and for the sake of our organizations. But then on a personal note, at the beginning of COVID, there was a week, it was actually the week of my birthday. My dad got COVID, my mom had COVID-like symptoms, and an uncle passed away, all in the same week as we're like chugging along, trying to help our clients figure out what the heck was going on. It was hard for me to make the decision to take a break and take a step away from work in order to care for myself and care for my family. But it was really during that time that I realized that this was not the work that I was really passionate about, and B, that I needed the work-life balance in order to be there for my family in ways that were really important. The other big thing that happened last year, as we all know, was the murder of George Floyd. And as we could talk about this if you want to, but I just want to add this in of just like Black professionals in corporate spaces were one of a handful, and it was true for me in my company. So automatically, some folks either jump into roles that they were already participating in around diversity, equity, inclusion, and others were kind of tapped to jump in, and others just kind of like stayed out of the way. But for me, it was really important to take care of and be with the other Black employees that were at my firm. And I feel like the combination of A, realizing that this was not the work that I wanted to do, and B, starting to take on this role as a diversity and inclusion officer of sorts, I realized that my strengths and my talents lied elsewhere, which is, again, like being with people, really making sure that Black professionals have the space and the support in order to advance in their careers, and they know what those things are. So 2020, COVID, everything that happened last year, like took me on this totally different journey. So as life events happen for you, it's really, it's hard in the moment, but it's also an opportunity to pause and reflect on what's the role that you're playing in the grander scheme of things. What's the sort of impact that you want to create in your life more broadly, and how you're showing up for those opportunities to create that life for yourself.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Naya, that's the coaching right there coming out. But, and I think, COVID, yeah, can't even forget that, while still being home and, in transitioning to the work-life balance, which Alpha brought up, those were my goals, to be in operations. And, I was like, oh, I'm going to leave this work from home life to do this. I was like, but it makes you think and ponder, but it makes you just reinforce your goals that you want for yourself, and only you can figure that out. And along with that is, as being a co-chair for the African American Caribbean Burg here at Northwell, which is an employee group, being in front and kind of directing while you don't really have time to process, because so many things are happening at the same time, where communication is happening, and also your employees, your team members of the African American Caribbean group are all seeking information and what to find out. So I think those are the things which, make you think about the work that's being done and really representing the culture, and for us to be able to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points, well stated from everyone. I think it is really important to to kind of have that step back, regarding the George Floyd situation and really checking on everyone's mental health, because I think a lot of people were impacted in a lot of different ways. Keeping the conversation going forward. Another question here. What is something that you wish you would have done or known at the very beginning of your career, or that you could tell your younger self? And Naya, can we start with you?
Ooh, sure. I would tell myself that it is okay to take time off. As I mentioned earlier, just like taking the time away when my parents got sick. That was a really tough decision for me to make, because as someone who really cares about, showing up for my team and being there when people needed me, it was hard for me to take a pause and be there for myself and then for my family. So one thing that I would tell my younger self is like, invest in your self-care. That is also part of your professional development. It should not be something that's sacrificed, but it's an integration that will support you as you move on and move up. So that's what I'd say.
I think for me, it's just a reminder that some days you're going to be successful and others you're not, right? And there's no shame in it, right? Not every day you're going to go into work and kill every single thing, right? There are days where you're going to mess up, right? And no one is like judging you for it, right? Like people might, give you feedback in the moment, but overall, most people are looking at your overall performance, right? Like beating yourself up because you missed one thing on the PowerPoint, or like, you forgot to like pull something down in Excel. I mean, spending that amount of like hours like ruminating and thinking over it, it is not helpful, right? Like just know, right? You're gonna have weeks you kill it, and then there's gonna be a day you just fall short, and it's okay, right? There is like no shame. It happens to everyone. So just recognize it, right? Figure out what you did wrong and how you can minimize it the next time, and keep killing it, right? But absolutely, you're going to have days where you do not kill it, and that's fine.
Thank you for saying that, Alpha.
No
I feel that even now. And it's important for everyone to know. Yes, you will have your days.
Yeah, I think for me, as an early careerist, just trying to figure out, what ways, can you invest yourself. So I would think it's really, a lot of people don't do, but ask and you shall receive. You really have to ask people for help. I think sometimes it, in terms of sense of direction, sense of guidance, people are willing to give it. And I think if I would have asked earlier, I would have been more of a sense of direction where I want to go in terms of healthcare. But, I think that you're going to pivot, and, allowing those pivots to not set you back, but kind of give you a sense of, a stillness to be able to move forward, knowing that it's going to be in your right path for you. I've been able to pivot many times, and, understanding that, I'm still reaching towards my goal. And each of those experiences have led me to understand myself better and be well-rounded in an environment where you're meeting with different people and, building relationships that, healthcare is very small. It comes right back around. Don't forget that as an early careerist. Don't burn bridges because they will come back around. You don't know who you're going to work for one day or who's going to work for you. So definitely don't allow yourself to be still in the moment and be able to pivot and ask for help as much as possible.
Yeah, it's a really great insight there, and I would agree 1000%. Next question to kick us off. What advice would you provide to an early careerist looking to develop or improve relationships with their managers or program directors? And Ralph, could we have you start leading this conversation?
I think everybody knows themselves the best, and you know what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. And I think what you find that your boss does well, or what you see that they do well that you're lacking, try to learn as much as possible from them. And it's okay to be upfront, like, I don't have the strongest skill sets in technology or leading a meeting. Can you be able to help me? Can you, what worked well for you that can work, possibly be able to help me? And you'll have your, where you'll have managers where you might have not the best working relationship with, and you're going to have to, unfortunately, probably look laterally to someone else who's maybe a lead within that team, but not a manager. And you have managers who will support you and, want to see you win and grow. So, it's different environments, and understanding that at the end of the day, it's still for you and your goal that you want to move forward with. So when you don't have the managers who's really supporting, or, just doesn't have that understanding, understand that, ask if there's someone that can help you, lead in the direction that you want to go, provide the skill sets that you need that's outside of your team. Unfortunately, you might have to do it outside of work, or try to find a project that deals with that area you want to learn more about. And, it's like, hey, can I join on this meeting? Can I, be on this project? And, if there's bandwidth, for that available for you. But if it isn't, you gotta, try to find a different way, alternative direction to try to find that experience. And it doesn't always have to be within work, as NAHSE. You could do some of the same work within an organization like NAHSE if you haven't joined, where you're connected with different individuals from different organizations, and have the building upon the program development, and these are all skill sets that you can take with you to be able to move forward.
I say one advice I would give. I think, for a lot of people who are, attending the Zoom event right now, you're very, develop-minded. You look for mentors, and that's naturally how you work. And when you're in grad school, you're almost taught that, your managers or people above you, like, they automatically have this mindset where it's like they're going to take you from point A to point B, right? And I think for me, right, when I started my fellowship, I don't know why. I think I just assumed that everyone above me, or who is like responsible for me, is going to do that, right? There are different styles out there, right? So I think it's like, be very cognizant of that, right? Not every person you're going to report to has that mindset. Some people just want you to do the work they give you, and they want you to do it well. They believe that's their responsibility for you, right? So I would say one is, know first what kind of relationship your manager wants with you, right? And don't necessarily try to force anything, right? It's like, understand where they're coming from, understand like, okay, this is who this person is, and this is where this relationship is going to go. What are my other needs, and how can I get them, right? Because I think sometimes what I've seen, and what happened to me a little bit, is I was like, okay, I have, when I was in grad school and I'm going to do a fellowship, or, the person I'm going to report to is automatically going to, help me map out my career and get me from here to here and here, and all of these things, when it's like, and I appreciate this about, some of the people I report to now, like, they really want you to do the work you're doing well. So once I accepted that and I did that well, then I was like, okay, these are the other needs I want to be met, and it's my responsibility to figure out how to meet them, right? So, that's how Aaron came into play, right? And that's how Aaron and I became close, because, he became that mentor. He became that person at, Mount Sinai, who was like, Alpha, I saw this job opportunity, right? Like, oh, this is how I approach this, right? So I think sometimes it's, don't think your manager or the director is going to be, that person that gets you from step A to B, right? They're very busy. They have a lot of things going on. And they just, for them, they want you to do the work well. And that's all they have time for, right? And that's not bad, right? That's not saying they're a bad person. It's just, that's what they need. And you at a job, right? At the end of the day, you at work, and they're paying you to do the work they give you, right? So figure out what kind of manager you have, and then figure out what are your needs, and then try to make those connections yourself, right? And you will be better for it, right? And you'll be happy, right? But don't put don't put your fate in one person ever, right? Just be smart and just know who you're working with.
Yeah, I love that advice of trusting your gut with the sort of relationships that you're forming with managers and mentors, and getting clear on what your needs are, and who could meet them. I think the thing that I'll add too is that depending on the relationship and depending on the organization, sometimes the structure is already there to have regular meetings with your manager about how you're developing. If that structure isn't in place, that's up to you to create it. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with someone new is to just put some time on the calendar, even if it's just 15 minutes, to get to know them, to get to know what their goals are, because believe it or not, like, you're not the only one with professional goals. Your manager has those goals as well, and you could also help them in advancing those goals, whether it's like learning how to work with new people, you know, building expertise in something that you may have expertise in. So it could also be a reciprocal relationship. And it's not just a one-sided relationship. And create the sort of structure where, yeah, you're meeting at the beginning and you decide whether it's a monthly cadence, a 3-month cadence, 6-month cadence, so that you can follow up on how your progress is going. You're ultimately responsible for managing that.
Yeah, I think that's, oh, go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, and ultimately, you don't like to hear it, but we're supposed to make our manager look good, So that's the thing, and working relationship, and being able to build upon that, and working with the higher ups, and knowing your organizational structure will help that also. Help you move forward and think about the relationship that you want to build upon. But those are the things.
Now that's the key point, making your manager look good. And I think for me personally, I understand what my manager's strengths are and her weaknesses. And ironically, some of her weaknesses are actually my strengths, so she'll kind of like tap me in, to continuously make her look good. But it is that reciprocal relationship, like you all said, because if there are things that I, have mentioned that I want to grow in areas I think I can develop, she's also very understanding and like letting me get those opportunities. So I think to all of you all's point here, it is important to know your manager and to know if they do have your best interests at heart and your career development at heart, or if they just want you to get your work done as quick as possible. So another question that we have is, what would you all say is a difficulty that you all have faced as an early careerist, and how did you overcome it? And Alpha, can we please start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it's this. I think for a lot of us, we are very like just by default, like very high achieving people, right? And it's like for so long, like with school, it's like the path to success is clear, right? It's like you get an assignment, if you put in the work, right, it's going to lead to this outcome, right? Like if it's a case competition, if I invest 40 or so hours, do the plan, it's going to work out. And I think for me, it's just like learning that, where it's like the real world is not that way, right? The real world is just like you have to come every single day ready to, give it your best, right? And once you do that, and that is enough, right? Like the outcome might not be, like the proof of your work might not be today, it might not be next week, it might be 2 months later, right? But you just have to keep at it, and you have to stay focused, right? And you have to be okay with, like I said earlier, right, having those days where you're not successful. But overall, in the long run, if you keep at it and you keep going at it, you will be successful, right? But I say surround yourself with a good network that can help you get to that point where you can finally say like, oh my God, right? All my hard work has actually paid off.
Okay, I'll jump in. I guess to echo Alpha's sharing, a challenge. I think it's really just been an internal one. We touched a little bit on imposter syndrome. I think that this is something, especially as an early careerist, that can come up when you're trying to show your boss that you know what you're doing, that you're a value add. The reality is, like, your first year of work, you don't know what you're doing. They don't prepare you for your professional world in grad school. You have the content base, but you're learning the culture, you're learning new content, you're learning everything. So it at times will feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. And I would, if I were to like kind of go back to myself during my first year of work, I would just remind myself that it's important to really focus on learning rather than proving rather than improving, and giving myself grace when I didn't get it perfectly right, because as Alpha mentioned, it is easy to kind of just go for the A's, and there is no A. There is just constant improvement and constant opportunities to do what you've already been doing better. So extend yourself grace, You're learning, you'll get there. And the first few years is just an opportunity for you to understand what's going on and to also get clear on what you want and where your strengths lie.
I think in terms of challenges is being comfortable with ambiguity. Just, healthcare is very fluid, not sense of a direction sometimes. And in terms of, what Alpha said, taking out fires, is truly understanding your self-confidence, and taking it up to understanding, like, you might not know all the answers, but your willingness to figure it out. I'll get back to you. And that's things that, kind of learned over time, because people are, sometimes looking for a sense of direction or looking for the answers, and, understanding that, you don't know all the answers, and you'll be able, but the ability to say, okay, I'm going to figure out and get back to you and close out that loop. And I think that was one of the things, that truly helped me and guide me to get where I am today. And of course, challenges of, maybe being the only African-American male in the room, in the company, in the classroom, having, it gives you a different outlook on life, especially in healthcare leadership. So, understanding that, yes, in my Blackness, I am, proud, and this is my culture, brings my diversity to the table, and understanding that, having from a different point of view, working with health disparities, all of a sudden that becomes a popular name again. But these are all the things that can help and guide you and help you develop you in who you are and what you want to be upon your journey.
Yeah, that's great. We just have one more question before we'll move into our audience questions. And I guess, Rob, we can start this last question off with you. So, given your career as an early careerist right now, where do you all see yourselves in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, given COVID right now, the changes, even this conversation just made me think work-life balance. Healthcare is very stressful. Healthcare leadership is very stressful, but still looking into operations. I think that's my main goal. Looking into, higher facilities, still within the New York area, looking at potentially different service lines that focus on, surgeries that's truly making an impact. And I think that'll be for me in my operations in a VP and up role.
So I think for me, it's, solving, the question of how do we improve care, especially for those that are most vulnerable among us, right? So I think for me, that has really come down to two areas, because I think the ambulatory space is where a lot of those patients go, and population health, right? So my next role is going to be at Mount Sinai Health Partners, which is a population health arm of Mount Sinai. And I think, I'm so excited for it. I don't know exactly what the specific role, but I know, like, there are problems out there when it comes to improving care for the vulnerable populations. And I want to be at the forefront of tackling those problems, right? Eventually, I want to continue to build my expertise and become a thought leader, right? I want, when something new is happening and there's like a new program being rolled out, I want people to come to me and say, Alpha, you have the experience in dealing with this population, right? What do you think, right? So the exact role, TBD, but I know I have a passion and I'm going to continue to follow it.
I really struggled with this question. Sinai a year from now would have said, okay, 2 years here and then grad school and then 3 years here, and then this is like the position that I want. And the reality is that the question of like where I want to be 5 years from now has like completely changed. The question instead that I spend more time thinking about is like, who do I want to say that I am 5 years from now? I want to say that, I'm an experienced coach, an experienced entrepreneur, whether this whole coaching thing works or not. I'm hoping it does, fingers crossed. I want to say that I am a mom, a wife. I want to say, that I'm helping people really think critically about their time here on Earth. The other thing that I'm working towards, and I don't know if I'll achieve it in 5 years, but I feel like it's a worthwhile effort, is financial freedom. So really laying the stakes now so that I'm creating a life where work is a choice and not a necessity. Because ultimately what I want to create for my family is intergenerational wealth. And what I want to create for myself is more time freedom.
I like that, Naya, more time freedom. That's good. Now we're going to segue into some questions that the audience has put forward in the chat for this evening. So the first one is, for individuals still in their master's program, what are some things they can do to put themselves at an advantage once they graduate, especially being a person of color?
So I would take this one. I would say if you if you right now you in your grad school program, like if you want to apply for a fellowship or you want to go into consultant, it's start looking through LinkedIn and making connections. Trying to if there are people of color in that organization, right, and you find someone who has had a similar trajectory or did a program that you did, chances are that person knows what it's like to be in your position. So reach out to them, right? They will be able to help you. I know for me, I've I've not been as good as using LinkedIn, but when I do go on there and I see messages from people, I always respond, right? Like it might take me a week or two or so, right? Or depending on what's going on in my current life, but I will respond to you when I know I have the time and dedication to be able to help you, right? Especially if you're a person of color. I think for me, that's how I got to this administrative position, and that's how I made it through, right? Like again, I keep referencing Aaron, right? Aaron checked in on me throughout this process, and was very great at providing advice and just saying like, you don't have to do this alone. I've been here and I can help you, right? And there's so many of us out there, and I think LinkedIn is a place where you can find them, right? So if you want to go into a fellowship, reach out to people who are doing fellowships, particularly at the organization you want to, or consult anything, right? Just you're not alone. Reach out. A lot of us are here to help.
Yeah. Sorry, Alpha. I personally do not like LinkedIn. It stresses me out. I don't know why. It's just like LinkedIn stresses me out. LinkedIn is awesome. I would also say check out like the alumni network for your school, right? That's like easy, low-hanging fruit there. You already have something in common. You guys both went to the same school. Sometimes it is through LinkedIn where you'll find them, but often your career office has access to alumni that they think may have similar interests or similar job prospects. So they may be able to help you, kind of figure out who may be best to help support you. Also, just like recent grads. So like look at the people a year or two out who are right above you. Again, something you already have something in common in that you both went to the same school at a similar time. So you could learn a lot from recent grads and from your alumni network. And if there is a career office at your grad school, just tap them. They're a wealth of knowledge. It's also a great place to prep for interviews, have your resume reviewed, and just also get advice on who you should be in touch with.
I'd say, not currently in grad school, but, don't forget, look left, look right, your classmates. Most of them, given that the master's programs are now fluid, it's not just all early careers that are in them. You might have a VP next to you in your class or someone who's looking for an opportunity. That's actually how I got my first opportunity at Northwell, was one of my classmates say, hey, there's this internship program, you should apply. I know who the leader, and passed off my resume, and I interviewed and got the opportunity. So definitely say that your professors, I said your obviously your alumni network, which you could find them through the people on LinkedIn. I'm a fan of LinkedIn. I paid for LinkedIn. It works. It's a great opportunity to network across the your organization, to find people across the nation, through other NAHSE chapters. So it's a great opportunity to do that. You have NAHSE here. You have American College of Healthcare Executives. And if you're already in the organization, you have your employee resource groups that are available for you. So, think about all the networks that are out there that right now, it's a little harder. You have to think strategically of how it's going to work, but it's definitely possible. And I think, COVID, yes, it takes away the human aspect, which I truly love, but it opens the doors for opportunities where you're engaging with others that are far away.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I'll add too, don't also take for granted your extracurricular experiences while you're a grad student. There may be clubs that are doing consulting or other clubs that are doing like local health related work, right? So like those are opportunities for you to also develop your leadership skills, but also gain professional experience like while you're a grad student. There also may be jobs around campus that may give you opportunities in places or and build skills in areas that you may not have had experience in. So I was a person who went from undergrad straight to grad school. So when I was thinking about, work experience and what I had to show for myself, a lot of my work on campus and through my extracurricular experiences really helped to bolster my resume. So if you're in a similar position, consider thinking about like those sorts of opportunities too.
I would add one more thing too. I think when it comes to like reaching out to people, whether, especially when you're reaching out to people who have full-time jobs, right? Don't just take like if somebody doesn't respond, just don't take that as they don't care, right? Like sometimes like our email inboxes are full, right? Like sometimes it's just things, just get pushed to the bottom and you never go back because every day, right? Things just keep piling and piling, right? So especially if it's a person of color, right? Like send 1, 2, 3 emails, right? Like eventually like they would get back to you. So I would say like definitely just I would like people have said I'm like yes, right. But when you sent me that email, I had a billion things going on. So I may have seen it come through, right? But I saw it in a split second and immediately I had a million other different things I was focusing on. It didn't mean like, you were not important, right? But like that follow-up would be like, oh my God, yes, you reached out to me and I will apologize. So like just don't like one time reaching out is sometimes not always the best. Try it again, right? People want to help.
Also make it easy for people to help you. So keep your message short, one sentence,
Right.
who you are, why you're reaching out, what you're hoping to get, a 30-minute like Zoom call. And then if get a Calendly link. So it's just easy for them to just like find a time that works for them. Make it easy to say yes.
Yeah, Alpha, that's a great point. To give another personal example, I had actually emailed one of the vice presidents at Sinai while I was a fellow, like, hey, can I intern in your department? Can I just, work there for, a few months? And he didn't respond. And ironically enough, I ended up seeing him like 2 weeks later at a gala. And I came up and introduced myself. He says, oh, yeah, I remember you. You sent me the email. I just forgot to respond. But I considered your offer. So, yeah, let's talk next week. And, to your point again, he had actually seen the email. But of course, him being at that executive level, he just got a bit overwhelmed. And had I not reached out initially and had I not followed up when I actually saw him in person, I would have not have had that opportunity to work with him for that 3 months. So definitely some good advice that you all are imparting on our audience today.
And also, yeah, and for some mistakes that I've seen some early careerists do, don't ask for a job on the first message. Just get out there.
Yeah, you're building a relationship. That's like asking for marriage on the first date. No, not a good look. Take your time.
Following up from that point, that can actually segue into our next question from the audience. So what are some ways to develop a great network, especially during this virtual time of Zoom meetings and Zoom happy hours, that personal touch is a bit removed. So what are some, strategies that you all have used or would say, would be potentially beneficial for developing some good networks now?
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing all the things, like it's really just Zoom right now, right? With the happy hours and the Zoom networking. A personal touch that I've been on the receiving end that I personally have appreciated were like handwritten thank you notes that a person has sent to me. So whether you have an office or, if you're comfortable, you have the relationship where you have someone's address, I think following up with a personal note just makes you stand out. So that's another thing to add, but yeah, I don't know. What are the other networking things that are happening?
So I would say for me, I recently just got hired, and as I was looking for jobs, right, like and I was looking for jobs in areas that I was not currently working in, right. I think what was really helpful is looking at all the personal connections I've already made, right. So it's like I worked with a doctor who knew the leader of the area I wanted to work in, right? So I talked to him and he connected me. And I think even though it wasn't me directly making that personal touch, but because I already established a personal connection with someone who made that touch, it made that, Zoom conversation a lot lighter. It made it seem like it was almost like we weren't starting off like, oh, I'm gonna get to know you because the person I already made the connection with talked me up, right? So I think sometimes it's like, yes, right? We're all tired of Zooms, right? None of us want to get to Zooms. But if if someone came to you and someone you trusted came to you and was like, hey, I know this person, I'm vouching for them, can you talk to them, right? You're more likely to be happy talking to them. So I think sometimes it's like, look at what you currently have and what you built pre-pandemic, right? And use those to like try to make these connections online more personalized, right? It's hard. I struggle with it too, right? But try your best, right? And as you can't go wrong. If you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah, I think also, like Alpha said, the previous connections, use those. Don't forget, a lot of people are making different career moves right now. So if you see something, an opportunity, ask someone, can they make an introduction or just someone to put you in the right direction. And, and also just shooting out the emails to individuals saying, hey, I'm interested in learning about more, of their career. And especially now, how did COVID, that's the easiest question. How did COVID affect your work? And just develop a conversation from there. And like I said, probably 80% of people won't respond, but look for the 20. They'll get don't feel bad if someone doesn't respond to it, but they will. They're busy, and I think people are looking for opportunities, especially now, to still give back and being able to uplift someone else.
Yeah, and another idea that just popped into my head. When I think about reaching out to potential like mentors or people in my network, I also like to think about what's in it for them. So one of the things that I did recently was take a phone call, but went for a walk. So we were walking and talking, even though we both weren't physically together. So people are itching for a break too. So you may not like put that in the email or wherever it is, but like create opportunities for people to do the things that they want to do and also connect with you.
That's great. And this actually leads us to our final question. And I'll actually pose this question to Alpha as well as Victoria, who was really successful and helpful in planning this event today, and actually recently accepted an administrative fellowship as well. So the question is, if someone is interested in an administrative fellowship, what are some tips for them to succeed in obtaining one?
So I would say for me, one, make sure you make connections with the current fellows, right? Like try your best to do that, because sometimes you get a lot of applicants, right? And after you read through a lot of applications, a lot of them start sounding the same, right? So you can really differentiate yourself by making that personal connection to the fellows at the organization you really want. And also, you know, and when so many people apply to something, right? It becomes about like, okay, what is the criteria, to move someone to the next round, right? And that usually ends up being like on details, right? Like who followed the directions well, who answered the question, right? Who, if they capitalize one thing, did they do it throughout, right? So I think like realize they're very competitive, right? But you can really like you can really help yourself out by not giving, the fellowship a reason to eliminate you. So make sure, even if you think you're detail oriented, ask someone to read it over, ask someone to just check it, right? Because when you're doing so many, you forget little things, right? So that's my two. Like, make sure you make connections with the current fellows, right? Because they are probably the ones who are screened in the first round, and they're the ones who can like go to their boss and be like, I really like this person, which is a boost already, right? And then just make sure, right, like you are detail oriented in those applications. Like make sure, right? Do not leave anything to chance. Read it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Alpha said. And just to add to that, um, being detailed oriented and also being able to find organizations that are like exactly maybe the fit that you are looking for. Because I had a bit of challenge when I was applying the first round, and it was because I was possibly applying to organizations that I personally felt like I didn't even fit in terms of what they are looking for and what I'm looking for professionally. But being able to do that research and being able to talk to past fellows and current fellows and getting that information that you need to be able to do the homework that requires you to be successful is definitely a key pointer that I used in the next round when I was applying.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head, Alpha, especially because, at least with Mount Sinai, as for our fellowship program, it is the fellows who actually do review the applications, and it always does help, having that personal connection and speaking with one And even when I got my fellowship, when I was in my interview process, one of my best friends, ironically enough, went to grad school with the first fellow at Mount Sinai Hospital. And, I had mentioned to him that I was applying. He said, oh, I can put you in touch with her. She's the first fellow. And I said, okay, great. I would love to hear about the program. And then lo and behold, when I had my on-site interview, I was shocked to just kind of see her there interviewing me. But because we already had that initial connection, she knew what I was about. She knew that I was assertive enough to take that next step to really, pursue what I wanted. And I think that might have been one of the key things here that made me get accepted into the program. Sorry, I see that we have one more question, and this can possibly be the last question for the evening before we wrap up. And this is geared towards everyone. Now, what are some ways to find a mentor and develop relationships that the person would want to take the time out and mentor someone?
I would say different avenues, like if you're already in an organization, healthcare organization, find out what the corporate mentorship programs are. There's a lot focused around diversity and inclusion also. From there, look at the local organizations, NAHSE, ACHE, I think somebody wrote that, has a mentorship opportunity. Really, you're gonna have to dig into a little research on on the different organizations that are out there. If you're healthcare leadership, if it's mental health, definitely in your space, public health, whichever one it is. And then from there, if it's just you're reaching out, hopefully this person can mentor you, that's a little different, where you're gonna have to build a bond and relationship a little bit with that person. And that's, I think I said, finding that through maybe the alumni network at your school. They have also mentor-mentee programs. If it's already developed, it makes it a little easier. For just reaching out to someone to mentor you, there may be a little bit of challenges, but it doesn't mean it's not available for you. And also do remember that, mentor-mentee programs are all different. And I think that's something for yourself as, even myself as early careerists, and, as you develop within healthcare, I'm my company, I'm selling myself, Ralph Thomas, and I have a board of directors, and each of them provide a different resource for me. One of them may be, just strictly strategic values. One may be just leadership, understanding how to manage people, maybe finance and IT, and each individual will give me a different skill set that, hey, this is what should I do? This, I haven't, encountered this before, or if it's part of a job negotiation process, are these the right questions? Am I asking the proper questions that leaders would ask? Because you don't know what you don't know. Especially in being leaders of color, not having that on-site to say, okay, this is your next step, this is what you should do, and each person will play a developmental role in your life within the board of directors, and then be sure to reach out to them as much as possible, keep them updated and access. So sometimes it's like a weekly thing, some people will be quarterly, you just meet up, this is what you need, this is what the outlook you're looking for, or just, this is the person that to take away your, help you with your mental health or work-life balance. That's going to help you through those challenges. So each person has a pivotal role in your process, and, just have, and I've done this in a workshop, just have yourself, put some names, and then this is who you're going to follow up with. And if you don't have someone, you'll build upon it.
Yeah, I think one of the most important skills that I think we've touched on, but maybe we haven't really been super clear about what early careers should be doing right now to take charge of your career, is just building relationships, building genuine relationships, not only with mentors, but with your peers and your colleagues, because again, you will be the future leaders of healthcare, right? So it's important to know who's who and what folks are up to. I'd say that the other thing is I don't tend to ask people to be my mentor until I've met with them maybe once or twice before, to really see if it's a good fit and to really get to know them, not only their career journey, but sometimes people are open to share, how the rest of their life is going on. So for a while, I built my career on mentors who had positions that I really admired. And the shift that has happened is really choosing mentors whose lives I admire. right? So people who are really holding it down in their careers, but also have a thriving family and are also thinking about investing. So it's just like the full package in one person or two people that have helped me really think about everything all together. So it's not like I'm kind of figuring it out, it's piecemeal. So that's just something to consider, of just like really building relationships that inspire you, because those will be the ones that you connect with, but then also seeking out mentors whose careers who not only the career you admire, but also just like their lifestyle and their approach to building their career you admire.
I also think another thing is like be reasonable about, what you expect for mentors at different level. I think, we all want a mentor who's CEO or COO. And honestly, as an early careerist, yes, it's great to have those, but those are people in my mind, right? And you have coffee with that just give you general feedback, right? Don't forget those people who are like one level above you, who can really give you like individual, like great feedback on your individual work. Because in order for you to get from where you are to that CEO level, right? You really need that, right? I think sometimes it's like we go into these organizations and immediately we're laser focused on the C-suite, right? Like VP of this, VP of that, right? And it's like, and I think for me, how I really shined in my fellowship, right, was I started working with someone who was a manager, someone who was just a director, right? And they just started giving me like all of these tasks that were like, that allowed me to shine. And once that happened, the praise and it came from the C-suite, because they were like, wow, you took that on, you excelled in it. So I think sometimes it's like, be very reasonable, right? That CEO is too busy. They're not gonna have time to like sit there and chart out, how to get you from point A to B. Yes, they will give you feedback and just generally guide you, right? But don't forget that you really need that feedback on your individual work, because at the end of the day, you will never make it to the C-suite if you don't know how to do your job well.
Yeah, and I think what you're distinguishing, Alpha, is like the difference between, just like an advising call where you're just like seeking guidance, right? A mentor / sponsor who is like giving you opportunities and giving you the space to really level up. And that's an important thing to distinguish, because both are important, right? The relationship building and the coffee is important, but then also like the skill development and like the one-on-one support and attention is critical too.
Yes, thank you all for those answers. And again, a big thanks to the panelists for presenting and giving feedback this evening. That's all the questions that we have for the audience right now. And thanks again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all for participating with us tonight. And just to add a few more upcoming events that we have on May 25th, we have our mental health program conversation happening. Then we have June 3rd, we have a community conversation around COVID and how it associates with mental health challenges. Then lastly, we have our chapter elections coming up on June 22nd. And just to add a little bit more with mentorship, we also have our NAHSE mentorship program. So if anyone is interested in applying sometime this year, we'll let you know when it's open. And also you can follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Why it would be NAHSE. No, it would be New York Regional NAHSE, which is NYR NAHSE, which is NAHSE. Then you can also follow our YPC, which is the Young Professional Committee membership on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And our panelists will be leaving their information in our chat box for anyone that wants to follow them on LinkedIn as well. And I would like to invite our chapter president for some closing remarks.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's truly been a pleasure hearing from the different panelists. I can honestly say that I am truly proud of the panelists who were able to present this evening, as well as Aaron and Victoria for bringing this topic to my attention, really wanting to share a lot of their experience to the young professionals that are in our local area, not only our own chapter, but many of our local chapters and local graduate programs as well. Again, I've been inspired. I'm just listening to you all and truly proud of what really like the next generation of leadership is going to look like. I think it was Ralph that mentioned, as you're looking for mentorship, I'm really like looking to the left and to the right. And here it's looking to the left, looking to the right, looking up, looking down, because you can learn from everybody at every point in your careers. So I do hope that you all enjoyed the program, and I do see the information, contact information in the chat. So definitely reach out to our panelists, reach out to our LinkedIn page. You can always connect with us there. As Victoria mentioned, the national organization does have a formal mentoring program. So that usually, it's an annual program. It's about actually 10 months or so. So that is something that I would highly encourage some of the new members of NAHSE, people wanting to join NAHSE. The mentoring program is one definitely of value that you would find valuable as well. With that, I am going to close it for the evening. I'm not sure if anyone has any last comments.
Marie, I was just want to say, don't forget your students, early careers, there's a discount. You don't want to pay the full price yet. Use it. I wrote it for as long as I could. Use that discount code as much as possible. And, and don't forget, mentoring is also giving back. We're building the next generation of healthcare leaders. So that starts early on, as much as high school. So think about that in terms of when we're looking forward and the ability to look back.
I want to say thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. But before we close out, I know that, it's always fun to kind of talk about what to do with your career and taking charge, but I'm really all about the action. So before you leave, what's one thing that you're going to do after this conversation? Drop it into the chat. What's one thing that you're going to do? Network, yes.
And also, I guess another thing I usually do, as I've done over the years, is look at the positions that you want. What are their job descriptions, which is online, which is on LinkedIn, which is, and what's that gap between what you need to get there? Remember, on the job description, you don't need 100%. You just need the ability to comprehend and do that, and you'll learn as you grow. But what does it take to get to that next level? And I think that's early careerists. You'll pick a couple of lines, and then every month you try to tackle one of them as much as possible.
Yeah, and for the LinkedIn lovers, a good next step too could be to just update your profile. Don't look at my profile; it's not up to date. But that's a good way for other people to get into your space too. So you could be doing a lot of outreach, but sometimes having an up to date and really clear LinkedIn page could help you help other people just slide into your DMs with opportunities that you may not have even considered.
Especially in a remote environment. Remember, it's not just in New York right now. So competition is real, but what makes you stand out?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would just say, to echo what everyone else has been saying, relationships matter, right? So build those and just be genuine and authentic and be yourself, right? You deserve to be in this world. You deserve to be in this space. And you guys are the next generation. So I'm excited to see where you guys all go.
Read one leadership book. Yes. One of the books that I really love is The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. Great book.
Grant Cardone, 10X, or the Highly Effective Principles of Leadership, Stephen Covey. I think it's, don't forget that all of your experiences can be, it transcends all. And I think that it's transferable, whether you're doing it, as an event planner, as a perfect project manager. Whether you don't think about what you do only at work, think about what you do outside of work also. Holistically, that's you that you could bring into work that makes you stand out.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you everybody for indicating that one thing that you're going to do. We're going to hold you to that. So we may not be checking in on you, but think that there might be somebody looking behind you on your shoulder, just checking in. So make sure that one thing that you committed to, that you are going to at least follow up. If not by the end of next month, at least, midpoint in the year, so that you keep yourself accountable for what you're saying that you're going to keep track of. So with that, good night, everyone. Thank you. For people who still need to commute, get home safe. And thank you to our panelists, again, to our moderator, Victoria. Have a good night. And again, get home safe.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.